Hey everybody, this is Jeff from Build an Aquarium Workshop, your excellent host, and I am here with my McDonald's iced coffee because, trying to wake up. It's still in the morning, and this video today is about my worst fish nightmare, okay? I've got a horror story to share about that for a hobbyist who only cared about color and size of fish, and because of that, it cost the lives of two large fish that I held dear to me, that I sold to him back in the 90s. This was a long time ago. And, it still haunts me. But, so what am I talking about? This week's episode, my worst nightmare is when you go into a tropical fish store, who should know better, right? And they have, in their aquariums, you've seen it and I've seen it, fish that don't belong together, whether it's temperament or water quality, the setup, they don't belong together, okay? And I've seen cold water and, tropical fish, or warm water fish, put together and made comfortable, but with really, if you try to keep them, it would be catastrophic results. And every time people would come in when I worked in the tropical fish business, people would come in and tell me what they had, and I would cringe. And so I have a horror story for you. But before we get to that, let's put the coffee down. One more sip. Before I get to that, okay, I have to do two big shout outs, all right? All right, first shout out to Mexicali Fish Keeper, who has inspired me to care about the YouTube algorithm. And previously, I could care less about any YouTube algorithm, because even if I only got to 500 people watching my videos and that helped them with their fish tanks, create their fish tank, then I'm happy with that. I don't need to satisfy millions, but that's okay. So now I'm caring more about it. I want to put out videos that people will watch, because the more people we get to, it will be better for not just the hobby, but ultimately, hopefully, for the fish, the animals. It could be not always fish. It could be corals, invertebrates, you know what I'm talking about. So, and I want to share my knowledge, and Mexicali Fish Keeper had done a video highlighting other YouTubers, very smart, very good, and he highlighted me. Just want to make one correction. So when he looked at my biography, I've lived in 4 states. I used to live in North Carolina. That was the 90s. I don't live in North Carolina anymore. I haven't been there since 2015 visiting, but I am just outside of Boise, Idaho. Boise, Idaho, of all places. You're like, what are you doing there? You're a fish keeper. But we've got some stores here. We've got some fish keepers here. But anyway, so shout out to him for getting me thrilled and motivated. I am going to reformat. So, all right. So that's the first shout out. And the next shout out is going to be the last video. If you haven't seen my video on betas, watch the beta video. But just as important, I got a wonderful comment. Shout out to Magdalena in Europe. I don't know her. I can't remember her whole name. I'm looking at the computer. But Magdalena. So if you look at that beta video, right? Beta myths. Again, we keep putting out these videos. I don't plan to do another beta video anytime soon, because we've killed that topic somewhat. But her comment to me was, that is the way, that is the format. If you want to have an intellectual conversation with a fellow hobbyist about fish, rather than just say something simple like, oh, betas need a filter, or period, or betas don't need a filter, period, and I say so, and that's all there is to it. Well, you know what? Maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but I'll tell you what, if you look at her comment to me, she's talking about, she brought up some really, really good points about it. Okay, so today's video, my worst fish nightmare. Well, one of my worst fish nightmares is when you go into a store and you go and you're looking into a fish store, tropical fish store, and you look into an aquarium and you see perhaps a 3-inch goldfish with a 1-inch Oscar, a couple of 1-inch black tetras. There's a giant, maybe a school of giant Danios in there, and in the corner there you're seeing a Crebensis cichlid. And maybe there's a small peacock cichlid, an Alanicar species out of Lake Malawi in there, and you're like, and they're all living, they're under this, in this environment, and as a tropical fish hobbyist, you cringe, you go, and it bothers you. It should bother you. Like, these fish are from all over the world. They all live in different water parameters, and yet we made it so that they could live in this one tank for a brief period of time. Who knows how long, right? I worked for fish stores for over 10 years. I worked for fish stores, from the small mom and pop shop to Petco and PetSmart, and I'm going to tell you, I've seen it, and it is a nightmare. It's a nightmare for the fish. It's not good for them. There is really no reason for that to even happen when you go into a tropical fish store, because this is the hobbyist store. They know what they're talking about, especially the small mom and pop shops. There really is no reason. If you don't have enough aquariums, then you got to figure something out. But don't just hodgepodge everything together and think it's okay. Okay, so my horror story, to scare you, my real horror story of two fish that lost their lives a long time ago in the 90s. It's just sad. What happens when you violate this and when you send this message that, oh, hey, it's okay. You can go ahead and hodgepodge whatever you want. So, and often that happens, new hobbyists, they come in there and they look at that and they go, yeah, I want that orange fish. I want the blue one. I want blue. I want orange. I want yellow. How about a little pink? All right. And I want them, big enough, or a lot of them in my aquarium, and because they don't know any better, new hobbyists especially, people maybe looking to get into the hobby, they're all, it's like they're, window shopping for decor for their home, It's like, I want this, I want that. The difference is these animals are living, okay? And, they all have their different requirements. And even though many who come from the same regions and same areas might have the same requirements, these fish are from, all over the world, okay? And should not be housed for many, many reasons I just mentioned. The big ones, temperament and water parameters such as pH and DH, right? Those are some of the big ones that you just can't deny, versus, not to mention cold water tropical, but then there's also salt and fresh, right? Now the salt and fresh, you're not going to get away with that. You're not going to see a damsel and a cichlid, living together because, depending on whether it's fresh or salt water, one's not going to make it. Okay, so people are good when it comes to the extreme. But when it comes to this fish, it might be a few days, or weeks before it succumbs to illness and dies in many cases. That's also not good, right? Not good for the fish. There's no reason for that. Okay, my worst horror. This is the guy, true story. In the 90s, I worked for a tropical, it's called Pets Plus. It's no longer around. This was in Wilmington, North Carolina. And he had, the owner, great owner, he had several stores. This was one of the stores in Wilmington. So this person came in, and he really wasn't, I thought he was a fish hobbyist because he had several aquariums. He used to come in all the time. He used to buy a lot of fish. And this guy must know what he's doing. But he didn't know what he was doing. He was window shopping. All he was really doing was he just wanted big fish. He had this affinity for big fish and colorful fish. Of course, big fish, colorful fish. That's all he cared about. So big aquariums, right? And I had two Frontosas, full-grown Frontosas. Anyway, so he wanted to buy them. I was deciding that they don't even want a bigger aquarium. This guy has bigger aquariums. I knew he had Oscars. I knew he had clown knives. I knew he had, big stuff. What I didn't know is that, he didn't care about water quality. He didn't care about any of that, He had great filtration, he had a heater, but he could care less when it came to, water is water, as far as he's concerned. It doesn't matter where it came from. It's fresh water, right? Oh, it's fresh water. Well, that isn't the case, as he found out, sadly, and me too. And I sold it to him, and then he, called up in panic, and he said, "Oh, the fish aren't doing well," But he killed them in a matter of hours. And you say, well, how did that even happen? Well, because his pH, he put him in a tank with a clown knife. Frontosas, even if in ideal water, they wouldn't go with clown knives. Clown knives are like on the opposite end of the spectrum, water chemistry-wise. They would prefer slightly acidic water. The Tanganyikans, I was keeping the pH and the DH really high. Higher than salt water, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos. It was like 9.2 or something, the pH. And so he killed them by pH shock. What does that mean for those of you who are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Water is water is water. It isn't, okay? And because you've seen the products I've used. I use the Tanganyikan buffer and the African cichlid salt. So that's a high dissolved amount of salt, DH, and very base or alkaline water, pH, right? Without getting into that. Okay, what happened was the first thing that was out of my mouth was, did you acclimate them? I did. I acclimated for like about an hour, and I noticed they weren't doing well in the bag. They started breathing really heavy. slow and heavy. I'm like, oh, well, I already knew immediately. I was like, well, that's pH shock. And he looked at me, he came to the store, what do you mean? What do I mean? I mean, you've been keeping fish, you've been coming in here, and you don't know anything about that. And he didn't. He was just like, I like fish. I just want them, big, colorful, and they swim around, and that's all I care about. They're just like entertainment, like a TV would be. Should have never happened, because part of that is my fault, not asking the right questions. And back then it was big with, make sure you acclimate your fish right, rather than, well, what do you have? What are you going to put them in with? Do you know where your pH is at? Because, I don't remember, but if I told them, but I keep these, my water is higher than what the store's at, okay? The store might be at 7.5 to 8.0, somewhere in there, but mine is at like 9.0, okay? And it's a big difference between 8 and 9. That's a massive difference. That would probably kill most fish, okay? Including these fish. And his pH must have been low. I had him bring in a water sample. I do remember that. I looked at it, I'm like, oh, your pH is really, really low, which is great for the clown knife, but not good for these fish. And DH, I can't remember, but it probably was not very high, because again, I was using cichlid salts in there, a blend of salts. And so these fish, and there's a difference, because I've seen the difference between DH shock, when you DH shock a fish, versus pH shock a fish, okay? And these were pH shocked. So they went to the bottom, breathing hard and heavy and deep, and eventually on their side, and couldn't recover. It just did too much damage, and both of these fish lost their lives. Okay, so, all right. Anyway, so my worst nightmare, you go into the stores and you see a hodgepodge of fish. So for all you new and future hobbyists, if you're watching this video, please, please do not make this mistake. You don't assume that store owner, whoever's in the shop, knows better. And because a lot of times they don't. Sometimes they get away with it, but a lot of times they don't. That there really is no reason to make these kinds of mistakes. So now, reformatting my channel, I wanted to go ahead and share a couple things real quick, and that'll be the episode. First thing is, for all of you cichlidophiles, right, like myself, we love the cichlids. This is a blast from the past. I've been in the hobby a long time, so I wanted to go ahead and share these. Maybe you could get them on eBay, who knows, people are probably selling them. But look at that, cichlid news, my friends. These are from 1993 to 1995, so early to mid 90s. These are great. These were, oh man, if you're into cichlids, as you can see, not just African cichlids, look at that with that discus. They are all cichlids. And so here we go at the back of these, which I thought was great back in the day, which is so awesome. I want to share with you real quick. What is new? This is back then. What is new across the world? How awesome is that, man? Any new cichlids coming out were in there. A lot of them were just colored morphs, like a variant, a race. And yeah, so what's new across the world? Look at like a pike cichlid there. Oh man, so cool to have these and be able to look and go, oh, not only do they have articles about certain cichlids, but they also would highlight what's coming out, what's to get excited. But okay, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, okay? I'm gonna try to do nutrient dense, right? Which would be content dense, and give you the information, a lot of information to help you. This video was to make sure that when you go to the store, you don't just go, I want that big orange one, and I want that pink one, and I want that pretty blue one, all right? Don't do it, all right? Find out first about the fish, where it comes from, its water parameters, what food it eats, find out as much as you can ahead of time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day. Happy fish keeping. We'll see you in the next video.